But this is I Can Science That. You've probably heard him. But maybe we should I'll bring up the link for it. Let's listen to what he's got to say on his recent video.
This channel is all about intellectual honesty and integrity, and I would like to make some corrections to a previous video, the one about 8 inches per mile squared. I'll throw a link up in the thing, and it'll be down in the doobly-doo. That video already contains a pinned comment by Truth Nerds that contains these corrections. I actually do have a typo on the screen in some of the math that didn't affect any of the results that I showed in the graph, but there is an error in there, and thank you, Truth Nerds, for catching that. More important, I really wanted to highlight this part of Truth Nerds' comment where he points out that the 8 inches per mile squared approximation isn't an approximation at all if you use, for the distance, the chord length method. If you have ever said that the 8 inches per mile squared approximation is only accurate over short distances, if you continue to say that after watching my previous video, this video is for you. We're talking about conversations about whether the Earth is flat, whether the Earth is a globe. We're talking about whether objects should be hidden by the curvature. Are we talking about across Lake Michigan? Across Lake Pontchartrain? Are we talking about the distance from Malibu out to San Jacinto? These are the distances that we are talking about. In the previous video, I showed that this approximation is accurate out past 1,000 miles, which is well beyond anything that is going to come up in discussions of flat Earth observations. Here is the chart that I showed in the previous video, and I take the distance out to 3,500 miles, and I show at that distance an error of 6.7%. That's not exactly a large error. If you watched the previous video, you know that I showed 4 different ways of calculating the drop with distance, depending on what you mean by distance. Let's take a closer look at this graph. The red line is the horizontal length method.
So before we continue, I just wanted to remind you of something that you may have forgot, but the good professor, not a professor, he's not a professor, made a video, 10 things that all flat earthers say. And let's see what he had to say, because if you're somebody who wants to make comments about the approximation of the 8 inches per mile squared, you're going to look pretty dumb.
And catch up to the 17th century.
Let's see if you'll catch up.
Number 2, flat earthers all say, I shouldn't see this thing, but I do, so the earth is flat. Then to justify this claim, you all say the same thing.
What do we say? Dave, tell us.
Typically with no context whatsoever.
No context. The context is, I shouldn't be able to see a thing. You just said the context yourself.
8 inches per mile squared.
Correct. Yep. It's perfect.
None of you have any idea what this means.
It means that the earth curves 8 inches for every mile squared.
You can't derive it. You can't calculate anything with it.
You can calculate things with it. I'll ask my chat right now, how much does the earth curve in a mile? You don't think they can calculate it based on 8 inches per mile squared? What if I said how many feet of curvature is there over 6 miles? Do you think that the chat could figure that out? 8 inches times 6 times 6? Or do you think they would be incapable? Or are they all as stupid as you is what you must be thinking? Okay, I get it.
You can't make a prediction with it.
You can't make a prediction with it. You can predict what the earth would curve in 10 miles. Right? That's a prediction. What the earth would curve in 100 miles. What the earth would curve in 150. In 170. And how about a 170.1, 0.2, 0.1111575? So basically, it's almost an infinite amount of predictions you can make.
You can't tell me anything about this value at all. What
do you mean we can't tell you anything about it? That's how much the earth curves over a certain distance. If it were a ball earth.
Point this out to you, you get very angry, and instead...
Yeah, because you're an idiot, and what you're saying is not true. But because you put professor in... I should just get to go on YouTube and make my name Dr. Jaron. I'll just be a doctor. Who gives a shit? We just put whatever name we want on the front of our name.
Instead of answering simple questions, you just link me to a bunch of videos made by con men. Well,
con men, yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, friends. Those people are doing incorrect math.
No, we're not.
Or lying, or...
No, we're not.
Or both. And
no, we're not. You're wrong again.
They are counting on the fact that you won't do any math at all to check up on them.
And he's the one who didn't do any math to check up on the 8 inches per mile squared.
8 inches per mile squared is not a valid way to measure
It is a valid way.
Earth's curvature. If you understood math, you would immediately see that this squared
He doesn't understand math. He's an idiot.
on miles is totally out of place. That's because this is a parabolic approximation.
Yes, it is.
This is for doing calculations with a parabola.
Which is what the Earth could be. You just made a weird shaped parabola, but it can be other shapes.
It's possible that you remember this shape from middle school algebra, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't. As you can see, the Earth is
He just puts that there. That's how it works.
not shaped like this. So where does it come from, and why do people use it? It comes from the Flat Earth Bible,
Oh, if it's from the Flat Earth Bible, then you don't want anything to do with it. I wouldn't touch it.
Zetetic astronomy, and Flat Earth priests use it because they know it's not accurate. It gives
They know it's not accurate. How dumb does this guy look? How dumb does he look?
them incorrect values that they can use to claim that they shouldn't be able to see something.
So now he's saying that we use incorrect values, but now does he realize? Has he made a retraction video? Has he taken this down? Well, no, it's his bread and butter. It's got 5 million views. What is it? $4,000 per every million views. So that's 4 times 5. He made $20,000 on this video alone. So that's crazy.
When in fact they totally should. There are dozens of videos on YouTube demonstrating this, several of which reference the actual formula that actually describes
Yeah, and you can use that formula and it comes out exactly the same, plus or minus like a foot over way more miles than you'd ever be able to see.
Earth's curvature, which as you can see requires trigonometry. Stop blindly repeating what you hear on Flat Earth videos and learn some
this guy's
basic
so
math
dumb.
so that you can do these calculations for
So dumb. The pompous just stupidity.
yourself. Number 3, all flat earthers.
He reminds me of my son, like just being so cocky. My son got in the car one day, sitting next to me. He's like, Dad, I know where babies come from. I'm like, do you? He's like 7 or something. I'm like, do you? He's like, yep. I'm like, tell me. He's like, no, I don't want to tell you. I'm like, tell me. He's like, all right. Leans in, the butthole. I'm like, you got it, kid. You're right on. You are so smart. That's what I think Professor Davis reminds me of. He probably thinks that babies come from the
Say
butthole.
the same 2 things about water. The first is water doesn't curve, and the second is water finds its own level. The second phrase is completely meaningless, so the fact that you all say that exact thing verbatim is just one of the many
It's meaningless. Water finding its own level is meaningless.
demonstrations that you all blindly
So everybody's spirit levels that everybody has in their homes that are used in every construction project, those are all meaningless.
repeat what you hear without giving it a moment's thought. As for the first phrase, stating that water doesn't curve is at least a coherent thought. However, it is dead wrong.
Oh, dead wrong.
Put a drop of water on a
Yeah, because comparing this drop of water, which probably has the weight of, I don't know, 1/10 of an ounce, something like that, definitely is comparable to the giant ball Earth flying through the vacuum of space. So I get it. And what happens to this drip when it falls off this leaf? Where does it end up? Oh, it ends up finding its own level onto some sort of puddle. Anyway, I don't know why we're watching the rest of that. We don't need to watch the rest of it. We just wanted to make sure we pointed out that he's dumb as a bag of hay. Now let's go back to listen to the rest of I Can Science That, because hey, and this guy's not a glober. I mean, not a flat earther, but he at least looks into things and tries to come to some conclusion, not like Professor Dave, who just gives out his work to somebody else and then reads a script.
My preferred method was the arc length, which is shown here in blue. Comparing that with the 8 inches per mile squared curve just above is remarkably close. The 8 inches per mile orange line lies between the extremes. Where is chord length on this graph? It's the green line, and you cannot see it. The orange line and the green line line up so perfect that you can't even see it. So if you're not happy that 1,000 miles is still a short distance in your book, take a look here. I've taken it all the way out to 7,900 miles. It's off by 0.03%.
Oh, no.
The reason
No.
is because the number 8 we use in
It's actually 7.99 something. Yes. Okay.
8 inches is in fact rounded off a little bit. Otherwise, that is the exact correct equation throughout the curve.
Exact correct equation is a little bit different than you can't derive anything from it. You can't predict things with it. You can't do anything with it. Only can do things with things that say the Earth is a sphere. That's it.
All the way out to the full diameter of the Earth. Past that point, chord length becomes meaningless as you just go back up the other side. If, like this commenter, you are out there somewhere saying the 8 inches per mile squared is an approximation that's only good over short distances, I'm calling on you right now go out there and make the correction.
Nobody will make
So if you're out there saying that formula's not right, that formula's a parabola, the formula is a parabola, but that doesn't mean the formula's wrong. If you use chord length for your distance, the formula for drop rate is a parabola. Here's the derivation right here. Finally, I have seen this comment before that the 8 inches per mile squared comes from the small angle approximation. You could say that, but as Truth Nerds just pointed out, there's a derivation of it where it comes from that being the exact form. If you're going to use the arc length method, then the small angle approximation will be your friend there. Maybe Science made a video where he shows this for the horizontal distance method, but where this is incorrect is in the assumption that you must use the small angle approximation. If you use for your distance measurement the chord length, then no approximation is required and the curve stays accurate all the way around. To summarize, 8 inches per mile squared is the exact formula for the drop rate if you're feeding in chord length for the distance. If you're measuring your distance in some other way, the approximation remains extremely accurate over hundreds and even thousands of miles. So if you're out there somewhere in the comments saying this only works over short distances, it's time for a correction. If you say that's not right, that's a parabola, it's time for a correction.
Dave.
The correct formula is in fact a parabola.
Dave.
And that approximation is dead on.
Dave.
So please get on out there with those corrections. When you post those corrections, wherever they are, toss a link down there. If YouTube gives you trouble, shoot me an email and I will paste the link for you. Let's make it.
This is ridiculous!
That's all I gotta say now.
Science is a liar sometimes.
Sometimes they just they act like these guys have no bias. That's the crazy thing, right? They have no bias at all. And by the way, if you want to get a link to that, it's t.me/Jeranism links. T.me/Jeranism links if you want to get that, which is a good thing to have because I always get approached with this that it doesn't work. It's a parabola, you idiot. Why was it squared? It wouldn't square the miles. And they look dumb. So now you have a video to show them, and they still will. They'll never admit it. They'll just keep doubling down.
This is Aristotle, thought to be the smartest man on the planet. He believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, and everybody believed him because he was so smart. Until another smartest guy came around, Galileo, and he disproved that theory, making Aristotle and everybody else on Earth look like a bitch. Of course, Galileo then thought comets were an optical illusion, and there's no way that the moon could cause the ocean's tides. Everybody believed that because he was so smart. He was also wrong, making him and everyone else on Earth look like a bitch again. And then, best of all, Sir Isaac Newton gets born and blows everybody's nips off with his big brains. Of course, he also thought he could turn metal into gold and died eating mercury, making him yet another stupid bitch. Are you seeing a pattern?
No.
Mr. Reynolds, these were all the smartest scientists on the planet. Only problem is they kept being wrong.